This video is about the mom stood near the subway station and a millionaire offered his help. If this story touches your heart, please mention where you are watching from in the comments. Please like the video and share your thoughts in comments. The rumble of the subway was a constant undertone in Julia's life. The vibration beneath her feet matched the chaotic rhythm of her thoughts. She stood at the edge of the subway station, her gaze lost in the shifting crowd. Today, like many others, she juggled a red diaper bag on her shoulder, while clutching her toddler, Sophie, on her hip. The girl's golden curls bounced as she squirmed, trying to catch glimpses of the world bustling around them. "Mommy, can we go?" Sophie whined, her little fingers reaching for the colorful posters plastered on the walls. Julia felt an ache in her chest. She had promised Sophie they would go to the park, but the subway was late, again. "I know, sweetheart. Just a little longer," Julia replied gently, brushing her knuckles against Sophie's cheek. The perfect mother she envisioned herself to be often collided with the reality of long days, spent managing an unpredictable toddler. In her heart, she felt she was failing somehow. This wasn't how she imagined parenting would be. As she fidgeted with the straps of the diaper bag, her mind wandered to the life she had envisioned before motherhood. A life filled with spontaneity, late-night adventures, and endless possibilities. Instead, she found herself trapped in a routine that sometimes felt suffocating. And just as she longed for a breath of fresh air, a low, smooth voice cut through her thoughts. "Need a hand?" Julia turned, her heart jumping at the sight of a man in an impeccably tailored navy suit. His dark hair was artfully tousled, with sharp features that suggested both confidence and kindness. He had a clean, fresh scent that lingered in the air, mingling with the metallic aroma of the subway station. "Excuse me," she stammered, taken aback by his sudden appearance and startlingly warm smile. "I saw you with your daughter and I thought you might need some help," he said, his blue eyes sparkling with sincerity. "I wouldn't want you to miss the park because of this subway delay." She felt a flutter of annoyance and intrigue at his offer. "That's very kind, but I can manage," she replied, aware of how defensive she sounded. His smile didn't falter. "I'm sure you can, but sometimes a little help goes a long way, doesn't it? I'm Nathan, by the way." Julia hesitated, taking in his confident demeanor. There was something about him that made her feel both flattered and cautious. "Julia," she replied, her voice softer now, as she assessed the situation. "I really don't want to bother you." "Believe me, Julia, it's no bother at all. I have some time to kill while waiting for my car. Why don't we get you and Sophie to the park?" The sound of another train screeching to a stop nearby broke through her hesitation, sending a rush of anxiety through her. Sophie wiggled in her arms, her wide eyes fixed on the man in the suit. "Mommy, can we go with him?" Sophie asked, her voice bright and trusting. Julia felt a pang in her chest, how easily her daughter accepted the world around her, while Julia felt the weight of every decision. "Okay," she finally said, her voice a whisper of uncertainty, "but only because I want to get to the park before it rains." "Great choice," Nathan grinned. "I promise I won't let you down." He reached out, offering his hand to Sophie, who giggled and grasped it like it was the most natural thing in the world. Julia felt a flicker of jealousy at how easily her daughter took to him. "Sophie, hold my hand too, okay?" she reminded, her tone a mix of authority and warmth. As they made their way to the exit, Nathan walked beside them, his long strides matching the quick pace of the little girl. "So what's at the park? Another mom's group?" he asked, shooting a glance at Julia that held a hint of playful challenge. "No, nothing like that. Just some swings and maybe a picnic," she replied, feeling the heat of embarrassment flush her cheeks. "I'm not really into the mom's group scene." "Ah, rebel," Nathan teased, but his eyes held a deeper curiosity. "I admire that. It takes courage to do things your own way." Julia couldn't help but smile at his compliment, a rare warmth blooming in her chest. "I'm just trying to figure it all out, you know. It's not easy being a single mom." The words hung between them, weighted with unspoken stories. Nathan's expression shifted slightly. revealing a glimmer of understanding. I can only imagine. It must be exhausting. Yes, it often is, she admitted, her voice lowering to a whisper. But I wouldn't trade it for anything. As they emerged into the bright daylight, the air felt charged with tension. Sophie ran ahead, captivated by the myriad colors of the flower beds lining the park entrance. Julia watched her daughter with a mix of pride and longing, a bittersweet reminder of the joy she sought but often struggled to grasp. "Your daughter is lovely," Nathan said, breaking her reverie. "It's clear she adores you." "Thank you," Julia replied, her heart swelling at the praise. "Sometimes I worry she deserves better than the chaos I bring." Nathan paused, studied her face, and for a moment Julia could see the empathy reflecting back. "I think every child deserves a parent who cares, and you definitely care." His words lingered in the air, settling around her like a warm blanket. She felt a flicker of vulnerability, a yearning to share more. "It's just, I never envisioned this life for myself." "What did you envision?" he asked, genuinely curious. "Honestly," she chuckled nervously, a hint of bitterness slipping into her tone, "I thought I'd be traveling the world, writing novels, falling in love repeatedly, not standing here in a subway station worrying about diaper bags." "Life has a funny way of rerouting our dreams," Nathan remarked, watching her closely. "Sometimes it leads us to unexpected pleasures." Julia caught his gaze, and for a fleeting moment she felt a connection pulsating between them, a shared understanding of what it meant to navigate life's uncertainties. But just as quickly, doubt crept in. Could she trust this stranger? Just then, Sophie's laughter echoed through the air as she swung from the metal frame of the playground, her joy a refreshing balm against Julia's insecurities. "Look at her," Julia said, proud yet wistful. "She's pure joy." Nathan smiled, his eyes glimmering with admiration. "You've done a great job. It's clear she loves being with you." As they settled down on a nearby bench to watch Sophie play, the earlier atmosphere thickened with unspoken tension. Julia felt the pull of attraction toward Nathan, something instinctual that sent shivers down her spine. "Do you want to grab a coffee while we wait?" he asked, his tone casual, but his gaze lingering on hers a moment too long. Coffee. An innocent enough offer, yet it felt charged with an unspoken promise. "Sure, why not?" she replied, trying to sound nonchalant even as her heart raced. As they stood up, the moment was interrupted by the sudden burst of a child's laughter nearby. A boy had toppled over on the grass, and Sophie rushed over to help him up. "Mommy, he fell. Can we help him?" Sophie's innocent enthusiasm pierced through Julia's thoughts, bringing her back to reality. "Yes, of course, sweetheart," Julia said, feeling a smile creep onto her lips. As she walked over, she heard Nathan's footsteps trailing behind. The moment felt delicate, as if an unseen thread bound them together. Julia couldn't shake the feeling that this encounter was just the beginning. With each passing moment, the weight of doubt and desire tangled within her. Perhaps life was leading her somewhere unexpected after all. As they approached the fallen boy, Julia felt the warmth of the sun on her face, a stark contrast to the swirling emotions inside her. She knelt beside Sophie, who was already offering her tiny hand to the boy, a mix of concern and eagerness on her face. "Are you okay?" Sophie asked, her voice full of genuine worry. The boy nodded, brushing grass off his shirt, his eyes wide as he took in the two unfamiliar faces. Julia couldn't help but smile at her daughter's instinct to help. "He's fine, sweetheart," Nathan interjected, kneeling next to them, a reassuring presence beside Julia. "Just a little scrape, right?" he said, casting a playful glance at the boy, who nodded, a shy smile breaking through his earlier embarrassment. Julia felt a flutter of admiration for Nathan. His ability to connect with children was effortless. The ease with which he interacted with Sophie made her heart flutter again, a mix of admiration and a tinge of something that felt dangerously close to attraction. "Thank you for helping him, Sophie," she said, ruffling her daughter's curls. "You're such a good friend." Sophie beamed at the praise, the light of her smile illuminating the moment. "Want to join us for a game?" the boy asked, his initial shyness fading with the encouragement of his newfound friends. Julia exchanged a glance with Nathan, who raised an eyebrow, as if to say, "Why not?" "You're welcome to," Nathan said, his voice warm and inviting. "It's a beautiful day for a game, after all." The boy's face lit up, and before Julia could respond, he was already leading Sophie toward the playground equipment. Julia watched them run off, laughter trailing behind them like a melody. She turned to Nathan, feeling an unsteady mix of gratitude and hesitation bubbling inside her. "You're really good with kids," she remarked, her voice softer now. "It helps to have a few nieces and nephews," he replied with a shrug, but there was a hint of pride in his tone. "They've taught me a lot about patience and playfulness. I guess it's a different kind of adventure." "Adventure," Julia echoed, her heart tightening at the word. "Sometimes I forget what that feels like." Nathan's expression softened, and he took a step closer, the air thickening with unspoken words. "You're an adventure in your own right, Julia. You're navigating life's surprises, and that's not easy." His words wrapped around her, evoking a rush of emotions she'd buried deep within. There was a weight to his gaze, a searching quality that made her heart race and her resolve waver. "I'm just surviving," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper, exposing her vulnerability. "Surviving is one thing, but thriving is another," Nathan said, his tone low and earnest. "It seems to me you're doing both, even if you don't see it." Julia wanted to respond, to argue that she was merely managing chaos, but his sincerity silenced her doubts. "You really think so?" she asked, letting the hope seep into her voice. "I do," he insisted, a smile breaking through the tension. "And I think sometimes it takes an outsider to see the beauty in your struggles." His words hung between them, an invisible thread woven through their conversation. Julia felt a flutter of longing deep within her, an urge to confide in this man who had stepped into her life so unexpectedly. But just as she opened her mouth to speak, Sophie came bounding back, her energy infectious. "Mommy, can I have a turn on the slide?" she squealed, her cheeks flushed with excitement. "Of course," Julia replied, her heart warming at her daughter's uncontainable joy. She stood, motioning for Nathan to follow. "She's a little daredevil," she added with a laugh, trying to dismiss the momentary connection she felt with him. As they watched Sophie climb to the top of the slide, Julia caught Nathan's gaze again. There was something magnetic about the way he looked at her, as if he could see beyond the surface of her chaotic life. She quickly turned away, focusing on Sophie's antics, but the warmth of his gaze lingered. "Do you have any children?" Julia asked, trying to steer the conversation into safer territory. "No, not yet," Nathan admitted, his tone thoughtful. "But I've always imagined having a big family. I love the energy kids bring into the world." Julia felt a pang of longing, a reminder of the dreams she once had. "It must be nice to think about that," she said, a hint of sadness creeping into her voice. "It is," he replied, his gaze steady. "But I want to do it right. Not just for the fun of it, but because I want to be present and supportive." Julia felt a flicker of admiration at his earnestness. She wondered if he could ever understand the weight of responsibility she felt as a single mother. "It's not always as glamorous as it seems," she said. "It's a lot of work." "I believe it," he said, nodding. "But you're doing it anyway. That's impressive." "Thanks," she said, her voice barely above a whisper again. The compliment felt like a balm to her insecurities, but the tension hovered, tantalizing and unsure. Sophie squealed as she slid down, clapping her hands before running over to Nathan, pulling him into a spontaneous hug. "You should play too," she exclaimed, her eyes sparkling with joy. Julia watched the interaction, a mix of pride and protective instinct surging within her. She wanted to shield Sophie from any potential heartbreak or disappointment caused by a fleeting connection. "Sophie, why don't you let Mr. Nathan catch his breath?" she suggested, her tone light yet carefully measured. "I'm okay, really." Nathan laughed, clearly delighted by Sophie's exuberance. "I'd love to play if it means more smiles like that." Julia felt the familiar twinge of jealousy again. Did he really mean it, or was he simply trying to indulge a child's whim? "Are you always this accommodating?" she teased, masking her uncertainty. "Only when it comes to cuteness like that," he said, nodding toward Sophie, who was already pulling him toward the swings. "Besides, it's refreshing to spend time with someone so full of life." Julia felt her heart race again, a strange mix of elation and apprehension swirling inside her. "Just don't get too attached," she said lightly, but the weight of her words hung heavily in the air. "Maybe I'm just here for the fun," Nathan replied with a playful glint in his eye. "And a chance to get to know you better." The implications of his words wrapped around her, creating a tension that was both thrilling and frightening. Julia felt a pang of something deeper, a yearning for connection she hadn't allowed herself to explore in years. "Hey," she said, her voice steadier now. "I appreciate your help today. This has been nice." "It has," he agreed, his expression earnest again. "And if you're open to it, I'd love to grab that coffee later, just the two of us." Julia's heart raced at the suggestion, the idea of sharing more of herself with Nathan, igniting a flicker of excitement. "Aye," she started, but doubt crept in. "What if it complicates things?" "Life is complicated, Julia," he said gently, his eyes searching hers. "But sometimes, those complications lead to something beautiful." His words settled over her like a warm embrace, stirring a mix of hope and trepidation within her. Could she allow herself to embrace this unexpected connection? Before she could respond, Sophie broke the silence, running back to them with her cheeks flushed, a wide smile plastered on her face. "Mommy, Mr. Nathan said we can play tag next," Sophie exclaimed, pulling Julia back to the present. "Tag it is then," Julia said, a smile creeping onto her lips despite the lingering questions in her heart. As they joined in the spontaneous game, laughter filled the air, mingling with the sweet scent of blooming flowers around them. Julia felt the weight of her worries lift, if only for a moment, caught in the rhythm of the game, the laughter, and the connection that pulsed between them like an electric current. In that moment, amidst children's laughter, shared glances, and the sun shining brightly overhead, Julia began to wonder if perhaps life's unexpected turns might lead her exactly where she needed to be. The sun hung low in the sky, painting the park in golden hues as Julia tried to catch her breath, her laughter mingling with Sophie's delighted squeals. The game of tag had turned into a whirlwind of energy, one that momentarily swept away her worries and insecurities. "On your mark, get set, go," Nathan shouted, his voice booming, and Sophie took off like a little rocket. Julia watched as her daughter sprinted across the grass, her curls bouncing in rhythm with her steps, pure joy radiating from her. "Hey, no fair," Nathan called out, pretending to be worn out from the chase, but Julia could see the playful glint in his eyes as he made a mock effort to catch up. Julia felt a smile tug at her lips. "You going to let a toddler outrun you?" she teased, but there was a warmth in her voice that suggested more than just playful banter. "Oh, I plan to make a strategic comeback," he replied, leaning down to tie his shoelaces, a mischievous grin spreading across his face. "It's all part of my master plan." Watching him, Julia felt a flutter of something unnameable. He was charming, there was no denying it, and seeing him engage with Sophie only deepened her admiration. But as the joyous laughter filled the air, doubts crept back in. Was it okay to let him in, even just a little? "Mommy, come play!" Sophie shouted, running back to them, her cheeks flushed from excitement. The innocence in her voice tugged at Julia's heartstrings. Okay," Julia laughed, running toward her daughter, the sounds of her own laughter mingling with the playful shouts around them. "Tag, you're it," she declared, tapping Sophie lightly on the shoulder before sprinting away, and the little girl squealed before chasing after her. Julia felt alive in that moment, the air thick with laughter and the sun warming her skin. She could let go, if only for a little while. But as she glanced back at Nathan, who was now cheering them on with exaggerated enthusiasm, a flicker of uncertainty crossed her mind. "Impressive form," he called out, clapping his hands. "You've really got the speed, Julia." "Not bad for a single mom," she shot back, her heart racing for more than just the sprinting. As the game progressed, Julia began to notice the subtle tension between them, like a current running just beneath the surface. Each time Nathan caught her gaze, her stomach twisted with a mix of excitement and fear. They continued playing until Sophie finally collapsed onto the grass, breathless and giggling. "I'm so tired. Let's have a picnic," she declared, rolling onto her back, arms stretched wide to the sky. "Good idea," Julia agreed, and she leaned down to catch her breath beside Sophie, who was flushed with happiness. "Nathan, do you want to join us for lunch? I have snacks in the bag." Nathan smiled, his blue eyes sparkling with delight. "I'd love to. What do you have?" "Just some sandwiches and fruit," Julia replied, opening the diaper bag and pulling out neatly packed containers. The simplicity of it felt grounding, a reminder of her everyday reality. "Sounds perfect," he said, settling down on the grass beside them. Nothing like a good picnic on a beautiful day. As they shared their lunch, the atmosphere shifted, the earlier playful energy settling into something more intimate. Julia felt a warmth spreading through her chest as they chatted about their lives, the conversation flowing easily despite the underlying tension that crackled between them. "So, what do you do when you're not rescuing strangers at subway stations?" Julia asked, her curiosity piqued. "I'm in finance," Nathan replied, his expression turning serious for a moment. "Not as glamorous as it sounds, but it has its perks." "Like what?" Julia teased, propping her chin on her hand. "The ability to buy snacks for impromptu picnics," he quipped back, a twinkle in his eye. "And to help fund my dream of traveling the world." That familiar ache resurfaced in Julia's chest, the reminder of dreams deferred, and she felt a bittersweet smile tugging at her lips. "I used to have dreams like that," she admitted, her voice dropping to a softer tone. "But life has a way of keeping you grounded." "Grounded isn't so bad," Nathan said, his gaze steady. "It's about finding joy in the little things, like this." Sophie, oblivious to the deeper undercurrents of their conversation, was busy munching on a piece of fruit, her eyes sparkling with mischief. "Mommy, can I have more cookies?" she asked, crumbs dotting her cheeks. "Just one more, and then we'll save some for later," Julia replied, reaching into the bag. It was moments like these that reminded her of the beauty and simplicity. Julia caught Nathan watching her as she interacted with her daughter, admiration etched on his features. "You're really good at this," he said, his voice low. "Thanks," she replied, a blush creeping onto her cheeks. "I try my best." "And it shows," he added, the sincerity in his tone sending shivers down her spine. "Sophie is lucky to have you." Julia felt a rush of warmth at his words, a flicker of vulnerability igniting within her. "I'm just trying to give her the best I can," she said quietly, her heart suddenly feeling heavy. "And you're doing an amazing job," Nathan said, leaning closer, his expression earnest. "It's okay to acknowledge that. It takes a lot of strength to be a single parent." Julia felt her breath hitch, the weight of his gaze pulling her in. "But what if I'm not enough?" she whispered, the question spilling out before she could hold it back. "You are," he said firmly, his voice soft yet reassuring. "You're more than enough, Julia. Just look at her." As Sophie giggled in the background, something shifted in Julia's chest. She wanted to believe him, wanted to let the warmth of his words wash over her, but doubt crept back in. "Sometimes it feels like I'm just treading water, you know," Julia admitted, the honesty in her voice surprising even herself. "I want to be more for her." "More than what?" Nathan asked, tilting his head slightly, curiosity sparking in his eyes. "More than a single mom struggling to make ends meet," she replied, her voice trembling slightly. "I want her to have everything I didn't." "You're giving her everything she needs right now," he said softly, his intensity unwavering. And that's worth more than any material thing. Julia's heart raced as she met his gaze, the air thick with unspoken words. "You really believe that?" she asked, her vulnerability hanging in the air. "Absolutely," he declared, leaning forward slightly. "You just have to learn to believe it too." Before she could respond, Sophie interrupted again, tugging at Julia's sleeve. "Can we go to the swings next?" "Sure, sweetheart," Julia said, grateful for the distraction, though she could still feel Nathan's gaze lingering on her. As they transitioned to the swings, Julia felt a mix of emotions swirling within her. Nathan joined them, pushing Sophie gently, laughter spilling from the little girl's lips, while Julia stood nearby, watching with a smile. "You should try it," Sophie called out, her eyes sparkling with excitement. "It's fun." "Maybe in a minute," Julia replied, but her heart pounded at the thought. The playful atmosphere had shifted, the tension transforming into something electric, and she felt her pulse quicken as Nathan turned to face her. "Come on, Julia. Join us," he encouraged, his voice low and inviting. "Just let go for a moment." As he extended his hand, Julia felt a battle within her, a desire to take that leap of faith colliding with the fear of vulnerability. "I don't know," she started, but the challenge in his eyes ignited something deep within her. "Just a little swing, for old time's sake," he teased, his grin infectious. "All right, just for a minute," she relented, her heart racing as she took his hand, feeling the warmth of his palm against hers. As they climbed onto the swing side by side, Julia felt the world spin around her, the thrill of the moment intertwining with the exhilarating tension between them. She swung gently for a moment, laughter bubbling up as Nathan pushed off the ground with a confident flick of his legs. "See? Not so scary," he exclaimed, pushing higher. And as they swung together, the laughter of Sophie mixing with the soft rustle of the leaves, Julia began to feel the weight of her worries lift. In that fleeting moment, she allowed herself to embrace the joy of the now, the connection she had long since hidden. With each push of the swing, she felt the tension between them grow, an electric current simmering just beneath the surface. With the sun shining above them, Julia dared to look over at Nathan, their gazes locking in an unspoken agreement, understanding, and something more. "Maybe this is what it means to be alive," she thought as the sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows on the playground as Julia swung higher, laughter spilling from her lips. It felt liberating, a brief escape from the responsibilities that anchored her to the ground. She caught Nathan's gaze, and for a heartbeat, the world around them melted away. "See, you're getting the hang of it," he chuckled, his voice warm and inviting. He swung beside her, the distance between them electrifying, as though gravity didn't hold the same power in this moment. Julia forced a smile, her heart racing for reasons that extended beyond the thrill of swinging. "You make it look easy." She pushed off harder, gaining momentum, but it was hard to focus on the swing when his presence loomed so closely. "If I can do it, so can you," Nathan replied, pushing higher, his eyes sparkling with mischief. "Just think of it as flying." "Flying?" Julia echoed, trying to sound playful, but the thought sent a shiver down her spine. The idea of soaring through the air felt both exhilarating and terrifying. "I think I'm more of a grounded person." "Grounded can be good," he said, his tone shifting slightly, revealing a deeper layer of sincerity. "But it can't hurt to spread your wings once in a while." His words hung between them, thick with implication. Julia's heart fluttered, a mix of excitement and fear bubbling within her. Could she really take that leap? At that moment, Sophie squealed from the side, where she was frantically pumping her legs on another swing. "Mommy, look at me," she shouted, the joy in her voice breaking through the tension. "That's my girl," Julia called back, her heart swelling with pride. But when she turned back to Nathan, the moment hung, suspended in time. "You're right about one thing. She has the spirit of an adventurer. Just like her mom," he added, his gaze unwavering. Julia felt warmth creep into her cheeks. "I'm not sure about that. I just try to keep up." Keeping up is a skill, Nathan remarked, his voice low, a hint of something deeper lacing his words. It takes practice and strength. The air crackled with unspoken emotions, and Julia couldn't ignore the way Nathan's gaze seemed to pierce through her. She met his eyes, searching for clarity but finding only reflection of her own inner turmoil. What did she want from this moment? From him? A sudden burst of laughter from Sophie interrupted the silence. "Mommy, I can go higher." Julia turned to see her daughter swinging wildly, her small body reaching for the sky. "Just be careful, sweetheart," she called, her heart skipping with both worry and admiration. "Always the protector," Nathan observed, his voice teasing yet gentle. "It's a good trait." "If only I could protect her from all the chaos in life," Julia replied, a hint of bitterness creeping into her voice. "I'm not sure I'm doing it right." "Every parent feels that way," he reassured, his tone shifting to empathy. "But you're here, you care, and that matters more than you realize." Julia bit her lip, his words stirring something deep within her. "I just wish I could be more than what I am right now." "More?" Nathan queried, his gaze steady. "What does that look like for you?" Before she could reply, Sophie raced over, her little legs pumping furiously. "Can we have ice cream next?" she asked, her face flushed with excitement. "Sweetheart, it's almost dinner time," Julia replied, though she felt a pang of guilt for not wanting to indulge her daughter in a little post-playground treat. "Just a tiny one?" Sophie begged, her eyes wide and pleading. Julia looked at Nathan, who was watching the interaction with an amused smile. "What do you think?" she asked, a half-smile tugging at her lips despite the twinge of anxiety tightening her chest. "I think ice cream is a celebrated food group," he replied, grinning. "Plus, it's a great way to cap off a day of adventuring." Julia chuckled, shaking her head. "You're not helping." "Why fight it?" Nathan teased, nudging her playfully. Sophie jumped up and down, her excitement palpable. "Ice cream! Ice cream!" All right, Julia relented, her heart softening at Sophie's infectious enthusiasm. "One scoop, and then we'll head home, I promise." "Yay!" Sophie squealed, clapping her hands. As they made their way to the ice cream vendor, Julia felt the tightness in her chest ease. The earlier tension between her and Nathan lingered in the background, but the joy radiating from her daughter made it a little easier to breathe. "Do you have a favorite flavor?" Nathan asked, falling into step beside her. "Chocolate chip cookie dough," Julia replied, her lips curling into a smile. "What about you?" "Classic vanilla. Can't go wrong with it," he said, shrugging as if it were an undeniable truth. "Everyone loves cookies and cream, but the classics have their charm." Julia raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "You're a man of simple pleasures. Sometimes the simplest things are the most fulfilling," he replied, his tone earnest. "Touché," she said, her heart warming to him again. "It's nice to meet someone who appreciates the little things. Life can be chaotic, but it's the little moments that keep us grounded," Nathan said, his voice low, sincerity glimmering in his eyes. As they waited in line, the sun began to dip below the horizon, casting a golden hue over the park. The moment felt almost surreal, an idyllic slice of life where laughter mingled with anticipation. "Here we are," Nathan announced as they reached the front of the line. "What's it going to be?" "A scoop of chocolate chip cookie dough, please," Julia ordered, her heart racing at the rush of simple pleasure. "And I'll take the classic vanilla," Nathan added with a grin. Once they received their cones, Sophie immediately dove into hers, with chocolate and cookie dough dribbling down her chin. "This is the best ice cream ever." "It's a solid choice," Nathan agreed, leaning down to wipe a bit of ice cream off Sophie's chin with his thumb. The gesture felt intimate to Julia, stirring a strange mix of warmth and jealousy within her. "You're really good with kids," she remarked, her voice soft. "Thanks," he said, glancing back at her. "It's fun to share those moments." Sophie has a way of making things brighter, Julia admitted, her heart swelling. She reminds me to enjoy the little things. You're doing a great job, Nathan said, his gaze steady. She adores you. Julia felt her breath hitch, the weight of his compliment settling deeply in her heart. I'm just trying to make sure she has a good life, though. I don't want her to feel like she's missing out. But she doesn't seem to feel that way, Nathan pointed out gently. You're giving her experiences that matter. You're present. Being present is hard, Julia admitted, the weight of her own doubts creeping back in. Sometimes it feels like I'm just pretending to be okay. You don't have to pretend, he said softly, his eyes earnest. You're doing the best you can, and that's okay. Julia tried to hold his gaze, to let his words sink in, but doubt gnawed at her. What if it's not enough? Enough is subjective, Nathan replied, taking a step closer, his voice dropping. But what you're doing matters. You matter. The sincerity in his words sent a shiver down her spine, and for a moment, the world around them faded. It was just the two of them, suspended in a moment filled with unspoken possibilities. Maybe, Julia started, her heart racing. Maybe I need to believe that more. Believing can be the hardest part, Nathan said, his gaze unwavering. But I'm here if you need someone to remind you. Just then, Sophie tugged at Julia's arm, her ice cream cone nearly toppling over. Mommy, I want to swing again. Julia smiled, letting the moment slip back into the joyful chaos of motherhood. Okay, let's go. They strolled back toward the swings, Sophie darting ahead with gleeful abandon. Julia could feel Nathan's presence close beside her, a comforting weight that both excited and frightened her. As they took their places on the swings once more, Julia felt the tension between them shimmer, a palpable energy that danced in the air. Here we are again, Nathan said, pushing off gently. Back to where it all began, she replied, a playful smile on her lips. Let's see if I can beat you this time. Challenge accepted, he said, a competitive gleam in his eye. They swung together, laughter flowing freely once again, and for a fleeting moment, the world felt right. Just as the sun dipped below the horizon, Julia found herself wishing